Welcome to Veronica Live, and we are here with a show regular. And I've been wanting to talk to him because you're in the news and you're fighting so hard for Florida. But we're happy to welcome back our Republican Party of Florida chairman, Evan Power. Welcome back to Veronica Live, Evan.
Thank you for having me. Always happy to be here.
Well, let's start with the elephant in the room, because I recently did have Peter Feynman, our national committee man on, and he was frustrated with how the delegate pick went down. And there was a news story that said the RPOF is purging its own, and that Peter was left off the key delegation committee. So let's start there, and then we'll get that out of the room, and we'll run with all the positive stuff that RPOF is doing.
Well, the way I've looked at the party all the time is it's about the party. The party's bigger than any one person. And so it's sad that he got left off. I mean, we worked hand in hand with the Trump campaign. We have a really strong delegation leadership from Eric Trump as our delegation chairman, Kimberly Guilfoyle on the platform committee. We have a long list of very strong people. And because he's the outgoing committee man, the incoming committee man, Joe Gruder's got the nod over him. And it's sad that he has some sour grapes on that, but that doesn't take away from the great delegation that we have.
Okay. Well, because I know lots of people have asked me about that. And I did want to talk about the Trump leading this coalition, Eric Trump, because, I just feel like who better than his son, President Trump's son, to fight the fight. So tell me about Eric Trump and why he's the best pick for this position.
Well, in 2016, Don Jr. led the New York delegation, and they put the president over the top for the nomination. And Eric came up to me and said that he wanted to do the same thing for Florida this time. And I think it's important that we're working hand in hand with the Trump campaign so that we're all working in tandem to help win this fall, because it's so important. And I thought it was a great nod to his support of us to want to be a part of our team.
Okay, I love it. And then tell me, because now, too, we have Lara Trump is leading the RNC, and I was so excited about that because I was not a fan of Roma, and I feel like now, I know it's all Trump family, but I feel like everybody has Trump's back at this point.
Well, no one was more critical than the RNC than I was during Rana's tenure, and I just think that, shaking up leadership from having Laura as the co-chair, Michael Whatley, who's a superb chairman, and he's doing a tremendous job. His number one mission is election integrity, and you know how important that is.
Yes.
So we have a really good team, and we've cut out a lot of the fat off of the RNC, and we're all working together on the same goal, sharing resources. And it's really refreshing as a state party chairman, knowing what we weren't getting before and all the information and resources that we're getting from the RNC now. It's like day and night.
Okay, well, makes me happy. And then we've got the convention coming up. And supposedly that is when President Trump is going to make his VP pick. And we've heard Rubio, J.D. Vance, Governor Burgum from North Dakota, Senator Tim Scott. I would personally love Sarah Huckabee Sanders. It's one of my favorites. Who do you think it's going to be, Evan?
I think there's only one person who knows, and that's Donald Trump. But I think, Senator Scott would do a great job. There's a number of them. Burgum is also probably on the top of that list. There's a lot of Florida names. I think anybody would do a good job. But I think at the end of the day, whoever that pick is, they're going to work well with President Trump, and we're going to win big in November.
And Senator Rubio, he's huge. And actually, I wouldn't mind Senator Rubio just because he's been around so much and in the fight. And I'm sure, Evan, as our chairman, I feel like this is the most important election ever in November. It's critical we win. So do you want more experience? And I actually liked Vivek, too, because he's such a fighter. Oh, my goodness.
Well, I think you need experience in that role because, you look at how important this election is. You see all the lawfare that they're throwing against us, and you want to have somebody who's ready to go on day one. So I think some of those experienced leaders probably have an advantage over a newcomer, but, they're all great choices.
Okay. And then speaking of lawfare, we just had, my new favorite convicted felon. I actually just ordered, I am not joking, a shirt that says that Trump is my favorite convicted felon on it because I'm going to go to a Kid Rock concert and I feel like I need to wear that shirt. So were you frustrated with the New York trial? I just thought it was literally an awful experience.
I mean, it was a sham trial. You knew what the result was going to be. It's sad that we've gotten to a place in our nation's history where a president is using his administration to go after his political opponents. But I think what it has done for our base is it's made it clear how important this election is. And talking to independents and even some Democrats, they see that they may have not voted for Trump in the past, but seeing what he's going through now make them more likely to vote for him now.
Yeah. And then what about our newest convicted felon is Hunter Biden. So I wanted your thoughts on that trial. And I know he's got another big trial coming up in California, and I honestly feel in my heart that he will get a pardon from his father. So I just wanted your thoughts on our other newest convicted felon, which I will not be buying a Hunter Biden shirt, just so you know, Evan.
Well, I didn't assume. I assume that, but when you think about it, I feel bad for what he's gone through and all the addiction issues. But beyond that, it's sad that is the trial we're having. It is a distraction from the real crimes that the Biden family has committed and all the overseas dealing and all the things that he should be held accountable for. And it's sad that they're getting him on this rather than going after the real issues, I think.
Yeah. And then on your X and Facebook, you just took a very, I'm sure it moved your heart, a trip to Israel. You were there. So tell us how long you were there and what you were doing. One of the pictures you're actually, I guess you toured one of the sites where people were attacked. So tell me about your experience in Israel.
Yeah, I spent a week over there. It was a very moving experience. You realize that they're constantly under siege. We went to one of the cities that was overrun by the Hamas terrorists on October 7th, and then we walked in this room and there's all these rockets, and we asked where they were from, and it was the acceptable amount of rockets that were sent before October 7th. It was a room full of rockets over a month period, and I can't understand what it's like to live under that barrage.
Yeah.
And standing in that field, and you could hear the artillery of the war that was going on in Gaza. And when you saw the raid where they rescued the hostages this week, and people are questioning whether if they killed too many Palestinians to free the hostages, and I think the answer is we wouldn't be asking that question if there were American hostages to be had. We wouldn't be asking what an acceptable level of opponent death is. We want our people back, and we want them back now. And why we're holding the Israelis to a different standard, I do not understand.
I don't understand it either. And I was officially kicked off X for a week because I was commenting on a story and my comment was how Biden loves to kick Netanyahu in the gut. And that got me kicked off X for a week because I feel like the Biden administration... No, I know. I'm still mad about it. I paid $22 and I just went over. I just been very active the last 3 months. And Monday, when I got kicked off, I went over 2 million feeds. So my message is getting out there because I'm commenting all the time. But I feel like the Biden administration has not had Netanyahu's back. And that's what that's what I said. Kicked him in the gut. Biden did. So what are your thoughts on that after visiting?
No, I think, we should have been their partners on day one, and we should have said the only response is give all the hostages back or you will be leveled. And, I think we've cost probably hostage lives by the fact that we've delayed them from doing what they need to do, which is to root out the terrorists and bring their people back. And it's sad that we're playing political games for a fringe part of the base that are sitting in on campuses and protesting and thinking that people who slaughtered hundreds of people are somehow morally superior than the people who just want to exist in their homeland.
Right. You've been traveling the state as our chairman of the Republican Party of Florida. So what are voters telling you? You were going to all these Lincoln Reagan dinners. What do people tell you, Evan, out in our great state of Florida?
Well, people are fired up. You see some of the stuff we talked about earlier in the press that there's some kind of division. That's not true. Most of the party out there is united, ready to defeat Joe Biden, send him back to his basement in Delaware, and he won't know the difference. But send President Trump back because they know what that record is. And everyone's united and ready to fight and understands how important this election is. And so I think you have a very energized base on our side. And okay. I don't think the Democrats are fired up.
Well, and part of the breaking news that you have led the charge with this is that, this is an amazing number, 1 million voters, Republicans that you've been able to get into our little party here. So tell me about that number, 1 million.
I mean, it's when you look at the 2020 election, the Democrats were ahead by 100,000 voters. 4 years later, we're approaching 1 million voter advantage.
That's just so
a dramatic
awesome.
turn. And when you look at when we're having statewide elections, it makes Florida not a competitive state for Democrats, and it's going to allow us to put up a big win for President Trump and a big reelection for Governor Scott. And I think that both of that is going to be positive for us. And hopefully that will also lead to big legislative wins so we can project our supermajorities and we can continue to get the good policy that's obviously resulting in those electoral successes.
So, and part of, the Dems, Nikki Fried is the Democrat chairperson for our state. And I know you post about her, and one of her posts was that Trump's in trouble and the Dems are leading. Why do you think she makes these statements that are untrue?
She needs to raise money, so I think she's probably on her 30th rebrand. Since she became chair, and there's some kind of need to. This is the breaking news that will turn the state around. But she's got a fundraise, so she's going to say some outrageous things. But the proof positive will come in November when we win, and we win big.
Okay, and then tell me, the election integrity. What are some other issues that you're leading the charge of in Florida? I mean, I always feel like when I go to vote in Florida, our county takes it so stinking seriously, and my signature never matches my license, so I've had to redo that on the iPad. And they know me, the people sitting behind the desk. So, are there any other things? Are we working harder to, make sure that there's no fake ballots and all of those things, Evan?
Well, I think Florida is the gold standard for election integrity. Let me say that. But there's always ways to improve it. So we're going to continue to look at that and continue to make it the gold standard moving forward. For me, I want to turn out voters. I want people to know that mail ballots are safe here in Florida and that we're doing a project called Republican Renewal, because you have to re-request your vote-in ballot if you need one. So if you go to republicanrenewal.com, you can do that. But beyond that, we're building a get out the vote operation that's unparalleled in our history, and our goal is to turn out every Republican voter. So not only will we win because we have a bigger voter registration advantage, but we're going to turn out our voters. So we want to show the nation how great Florida's doing and have a big victory.
I love that. And then I saw a story this week that said Governor DeSantis is full on pro-Trump, raising money. And I know you work hand in hand with him. So tell us about that good news story.
Oh, no, he is fired up. He sees what happened in New York and is even more fired up than before. And he's working hand in hand with, we're all working together for the RNC, the Trump campaign, and the RPOF. And then the governor's also helping us on the constitutional amendments, because we want to work against Amendments 3 and 4. And he's been very gracious and is helping raise money for those efforts. And so I think it's great to have everybody working together for big electoral successes, not just for president, but on the constitutional amendments and down ballot.
Yeah, that's awesome news. And then what are you excited about the Milwaukee RNC event?
I mean, we're going to have a good time. The Florida delegation is kind of leading the way. We have a big calendar of events. It's going to be exciting for us. But I'm excited to hear the message. I mean, we have a clear message. 4 years ago, the economy was good, the border was closed, and the world was at peace. 4 years later, the border is open, the economy is in free fall, and the world is on fire. And that's the message you're going to hear from the RNC. And I think it's going to ring home for voters that there's a choice between two presidents that have records. And one was good and one is abysmal.
That is so true. And so tell us, I saw on the RPOF, Carlos Trujillo, you guys have just recruited. Tell us who that is and what he'll be doing on behalf of the RPOF.
So Carlos Trujillo is going to be on the platform committee along with Kimberly Guilfoyle. He's the former ambassador to the, I forget all of the words, but it's for all the American states. But he was the ambassador to that. He was also the assistant ambassador to the UN for a while. He's back in Florida, and he's an extremely talented guy, and we're lucky to have him represent us on the platform committee.
So are there any other things we need to worry about as Floridians? I mean, I just feel like we're so secure on how we do elections.
No, I think we got to keep turning out our voters, because if we don't turn out our voters, and so that's my number one priority, is turning out every voter possible. And we got to continue to see what they're doing on elections. And, the governor has been committed. The legislature has been committed to looking at the election law every 2 years to root out anything that may go wrong, because you got to be vigilant on the new things that Democrats are going to try to change the narrative.
Yeah, very true. And then when I talk to voters, because when people know you're political, they always talk to you, and I know they're always talking to you, Evan, as our chairman. Biden is just every day is such an embarrassment. That do you feel like something might go down in the DNC convention and they end up swapping him out?
I've always thought that may be a possibility. I think it's less likely now because they've kind of doubled down on this thing. Right. But you got to watch Gavin Newsom. He's up to something. And I just think that it's becoming clearer and clearer that President Biden is not capable of doing this job. You just look at the Normandy experience.
Yeah,
there.
I was going to ask you about that. On the stage, I was traumatized, honestly. It looked like he was doing something in his pants, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Just a little embarrassing, but I think it's clear that he's not capable of being president. So and people have to remember the Republican convention is delegates elected. At the Democrat convention, they have these things called super delegates that they appoint, and you don't actually need a grassroots delegate to replace the nominee.
Really?
So if the super delegates all agree, they could just replace them.
So do you really think it's Newsom then? I mean, why, when was it, a few months ago, and he went to the White House and, he's always looking so gorgeous for the camera. I mean, who else could it be? I don't know who else, because Michelle Obama's enjoying the life of a billionaire lady with the chef and the driver. Is there any other Dem you think they might push forward?
I think those are the names you hear.
Okay.
You hear Obama, you hear Newsom, and then you hear sometimes Kamala, but I don't think anyone is prepared for Kamala.
No, we're not. Well, and I don't know how you feel, but I just feel like since Obama was our president, I thought we would be, united with all races, and I don't know. I just feel like with all this DEI stuff and woke stuff in our military, that we are more divided more than ever. And this is the most important race of our lifetime, Evan. And are you feeling that way as well?
No, I do. I think it's the most important race. When you're looking at it, I touched on it a little bit about the difference between 4 years ago and now. But you also look at the political targeting of the president from the administration. Is if we let them, and I say in the stump speeches when I go around the state, if you let Democrats have total control, which they don't right now, but if they did have total control of the Senate and the House, they would eliminate the filibuster, they would stack the Supreme Court, and then they'd federalize elections, and then Republicans would have no chance. So that's why this election is important more than anything else, is we need to prevent them from getting full control of the government.
Well, and I feel like they have a lot of control, and that was the one thing that came to fruition this week, is the Hunter Biden computer is real. And I'm so angry about the 51 intel officers that wrote the letters saying that, it was a Russian hoax. So do you feel that way too? I just feel like and now Steve Bannon's going to be in prison. I mean, they're constantly trying to target people, take us all out on the right. And it's hard to fight back, especially if you don't have a big bank account.
No, and that's what they do, is they bankrupt people. And I think, at the end of the day, that's not the role of the judicial system, and we've got to win elections so that we can make sure that we bring the government, bring the judicial system back to where it needs to be.
So I just got back from about 6 days in New York City, and I thought it was my job to interrogate all the Uber and Lyft drivers to see their thoughts on illegal migration, because supposedly New York City has like 450,000. And I feel like the number one issue for voters, and you'll have to tell me if this is for Floridians, is securing our border. But it was funny because a lot of these drivers were, foreigners that had become Americans, and they didn't want illegals here at all, and feel like they're corrupting the system. So are you finding that as you travel around, that's one of the number one issues for Americans is this crazy open border? And like, we just got 6 terrorists, I guess, the other day that, I feel like they're coming, and a lot of them are men too. I don't know where the families are, but being in New York, I felt like that was definitely New Yorkers, one of their number one issues.
No, I think if you look at the CBS poll, 63% of the respondents want us to start deporting illegal aliens. And I think people have come to the conclusion it's dangerous to have these people here who are unvetted. Yeah. And when your borders open, you cannot control who's coming in around. And if I were our enemy, I would utilize that to bring people in that we do not want here.
Yeah, I know it's tough because I feel like I don't know who these people are, and I'm on that wagon now. I want to deport people. What do you want people to know about Governor DeSantis? Because I know you work hand in hand with him.
I think it's important that we're all working on the same team now, and we have presidential primaries.
Yeah,
but the governor is an extremely talented and smart guy. And he's helping to raise money, and he's helping us on the constitutional amendments. And he's a great partner for our party. And I think he is a big part of the reason why Florida has been such a big success. And I think with us all working together, telling the Florida story, we're going to win more people over to the Republican side because they see what we're doing here in Florida, and we are the beacon of freedom for the rest of the nation.
Yeah, I love that. And why Trump? Because I will say now that darling President Trump is a convicted felon, I'm seeing all kinds of stories that now that the black man likes that and feels one with him. But why should voters choose Trump, Chairman?
Well, I think the thing is very clear there is that, during his years in office, we have a record where the economy was great, the border was secure, the world was at peace.
Yeah.
And now you're in a different world. So I think that the record speaks for itself, and he's the man for the fight right now just because they've targeted him and made him the Democrats have really made him the tip of the spear. And sometimes when people do that, you have to fight back and say, no, you get your worst fear.
Yeah, so true. And then did you have any thoughts on Fauci? You came out, testified in front of Congress, and I just feel like what our country went through with the shutdowns and the vaccines and people losing their jobs and not being able to visit relatives that were dying, I just can't ever go that way again, Evan.
No, I think people are tired of that. We rejected that here in Florida, and I think we would reject it again. I think people see through it, and I think, it's why there's such a pushback against the World Health Organization and some of the stuff that they're talking about on global treaties. I think the American people have experienced it once. They don't want to do it again.
Right. So what are we missing? You're the chairman of our wonderful Republican Party of Florida. I love living in this state because everybody's like, Florida. Like when where are you from? I always say I'm from Freedom, Florida. So I add the freedom in the front. And that was the other surprising thing. So many people had, from New York had to leave, of course, because they couldn't get a job and they weren't making it. So they did come to Georgia and Florida. And then, of course, they missed the food in New York. So they went back, Evan. But, what are we missing? Because we do live in the greatest state, I feel, with the strongest governor.
No, we do. We are the model for the nation. And I think, being the Florida chairman is a great thing. When I go to the RNC meetings, people want to know how we do it here in Florida. And I tell them that, we live in a place where our elected officials campaign and govern the exact same way. They don't campaign one way and govern another way. And when you do that, voters appreciate your honesty and your ability to deliver. And I think it's kind of contagious. You hear a lot of people in a lot of states that want to have leaders like we have here in Florida that have delivered on conservative promises and moved the state forward. And I think the proof is in the pudding of how we're doing as an economy, how we're doing on a freedom level, and how that people are flocking here.
Well, it's always a pleasure, and you do answer the hard questions. And here in the Panhandle, we hope to have you over for a debate with our congressional candidates. But we've been talking with Chairman Evan Power of the Republican Party of Florida. And thanks, Chairman, for joining us. And I got to have you back after the convention because I got to hear, because then we'll know who the VP is. But if you have any breaking news, you call me or text me anytime, please.
I will do. Thank you for all the work you do over there.
Okay. Thanks for joining Veronica Live.